Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, conscience. Your brain is a funny thing. Most of the time, it knows what's better for you in any given situation. It will take ever so subtle control of you to make sure you make the right decision. However, sometimes if you abuse those mechanisms, your brain will take control accordingly to match your actions. Sometimes the responses that it comes up with are less than satisfactory. Sometimes they're absolutely terrifying. And sometimes they're deadly. Tom was not a friendly man. He wasn't the kind of man that had an understandable reason behind his unpleasantness either. He just wasn't a very nice person. However, using that life skill, he had put himself in a position where he could manipulate people into the dirt. He was a high-level manager at a local electronics store. He had managed to completely and utterly trample his fellow co-workers on the way up the ladder, using every tactic he had to make them seem unfit for the job. He was a sociopath in every sense of the word today. This sociopath held the life of a worker in his hands. Tom sat in his chair and stared at the janitor with a true sense of apathy. Please, Tom, I need this job to keep payments on my studio apartment. I'm begging you. I'm sorry that I missed the carpet stain the other day, and I promise you it won't happen again. Please don't throw me out onto the street. Tom shifted in his chair. Listen, but your situation is of no importance to me. There are many more efficient people in line for your job. People who won't miss that one stain on the carpet. You can't outperform them, so you lose. Take anything that's yours. And the janitor stood speechless in the middle of the office, holding back a torrent of emotion. He was afraid. He was sad. How would he live now? He turned and slowly walked out of the office. Head hung low, he closed the door behind himself with a quiet click. Didn't really like that guy anyway. Glad I had a reason to fire him. Maybe the new guy will be able to do his damn job. He pulled a bottle of cognac out of his desk drawer and drank directly out of it. He put his feet up on the desk and began to laugh. He felt on top of the world, like he was the king of everything. He had the power to condemn a man to die for a simple mistake that made him feel pretty good. He thought back to high school, all the girls he had stolen from their respective boyfriends, and then decided that he had no use for them, leaving them single. All the times he stole homework, all the times he laughed at those who had fallen. He didn't care about their life. She only cared that he had lived in that moment and had done exactly what he wanted to do. He was satisfied. The workday was almost over, and Christmas was coming up fast. He decided that he'd rather have a little more money to buy himself gifts. So he typed a quick email to all his employees. Attention workers, there will be no Christmas bonus this year. There will be no compensation for this. Work harder. He sent the email, closed his laptop, packed his things and left the store. 20 minutes later, he had arrived at his two-story home in a quiet little suburb outside of the city. He opened the door, and his wife welcomed him in. Hey Tom, how was work? Same shit as usual. Go make me dinner. Oh okay. I love you, dear. Yeah. Tom lived at home with only his wife. Despite her desires, they had had no children. Despite how the situation may appear to anyone viewing it, she had the truest affection for her husband and was willing to work through anything. He held affection only for himself, but kept her around because she was useful. 3 hours after dinner, Tom was upstairs, readying himself for sleep. As he switched off the light in the bathroom, He thought he heard a faint crying, not the crying of his wife. She had gone to sleep. A soft crying that seemed to come from the darkness. It gave him a peculiar feeling. He felt the slightest bit of pity. He knew not for what, only that he was sad for something. In an instant it was gone, and he shook it off. Rationalizing it as a fatigue-induced hallucination. He walked down the hall to his bedroom, climbed into bed with his wife, and attempted to fall asleep the moment before he drifted to sleep. An image flashed before his eyes, the image of a cold, withered man, sitting and quietly sobbing in a dark alley. Someone on the edge of death. Tom was suddenly awash with grief, depression, and a piercing fear. He quickly sat up, breathing heavily. He looked around the room, nothing, only the sound of his own pulse in his ears. He collapsed into bed and passed out, exhausted from the sudden emotional burst. He woke up hours later, at 9 a.m. It was Saturday, December 24th, the day before Christmas. He rolled out of bed, walked into the hallway, and into the bathroom to brush his teeth. As he walked out of the bathroom, he heard it again. The faint crying, it had gotten louder. He looked behind himself, and for an instant saw a pair of small, white eyes focused on him. They were gone within an instant, and took the crying with them. But they left Tom with something. He felt as if a weight had been laid on his heart, like a sadness had been thrust upon him, but with no cause. Just a weight of depression. As the day progressed, the weight became heavier. He would come close to crying at certain points, and would be overwhelmed with pity at others. He didn't know why he was this way, only that the feeling was eating him alive. The night came, and Tom was walking to his bedroom. As he came to his bedroom door, he felt a chill on his back, a ghostly, blood-freezing chill. With it came the crying, soft, quiet, piercing crying. It seemed to be coming from downstairs. The chill dwindled, and the crying faded away. Tom climbed into bed once again and tried to fall asleep, but he couldn't. There was a presence in the room. He sat up and looked around the room. In the right-hand corner, a pair of white eyes stared at him, and blinking, Tom blinked out of surprise, and in an instant, the eyes were right in front of him. They stared into his soul. Tom, his entire body was suddenly overwhelmed by the horrible, deathly chill. The eyes were connected to a dark, shifting figure. It whispered to him, "You killed him." With that, Tom collapsed into bed, passed out from fear. The next morning, he asked his wife if she had noticed a single thing. "No, dear, last night and the night before, you slept very soundly. You must have been dreaming." Tom nervously thought to himself, that's all it was. A bad dream, yeah. That's right, things like that don't happen in real life. It was a dream. It was Christmas morning. Tom hadn't bought a single thing for anyone. He was too busy relishing the money he attained by cutting the Christmas bonuses of the workers. His wife pulled out a folded heart. "I made this for you, dear." Tom glanced at it as he was reading the morning newspaper. "Yeah, hon, that's great. Put it somewhere nice. I wrote something on it for you. I'll read it later. Put it away." A tear welled up in his wife's eye. "Hey, all right, dear. I know you've been stressed." She turned and quickly walked up the stairs to the bedroom. Tom continued to read the paper. Christmas was of no importance to him. He could buy his own gifts just fine. Everyone else should be able to sustain themselves as well. Not a moment after his wife had left you, the crying returned. But it was not the faint crying before. It was his wife. softly crying in the bedroom. It sounded eerily similar to the crying of before. The day lazily passed by, Tom and his wife going about their respective business. As Tom exited the bathroom and started down the hall, he froze, paralyzed with a sudden, overwhelming fear. The crying was coming from downstairs, loud beckoning. He couldn't move towards the bedroom. He felt an unstoppable urge pulling him downstairs. He slowly walked towards the stairs. The crying grew louder. It beckoned ever more. He could feel the chill slowly overtaking him as he made his way closer. Closer down the stairs. He didn't even feel like he had control of his motions anymore. The crying pulled him. He turned the corner and looked into the living room. Where the crying was coming from, there was a thin, emaciated man standing in the middle of the room. He was clothed only in tattered rags, with unwashed hair and an unkempt body. His back was facing Tom, who felt an unstoppable urge to walk to the man. The chill had completely taken his body, and it became even colder as he approached the man. He put his hand on the man's shoulder. He stopped crying and began to breathe heavily. He whipped around and stared into Tom's eyes with his own colorless eyes. His face was horribly disfigured, as if beginning to decay. He whispered to Tom, "You killed me." Tom suddenly felt pain, overwhelming, horrifying. Pain, not physical pain, emotional pain. He felt depression as if collected over years and concentrated into a single moment. Anger, grief, guilt, years and years of emotional pain, concentrated into one excruciating moment. He collapsed on the floor, screaming and writhing in a sea of uncontrolled emotion. The disfigured man looked down at him with his cold, colorless eyes. His body had turned to one of not filth, but of one that had been physically decayed. He began to speak in a stuttering, elderly voice. "Why you condemn dozens to scarring, emotional torment you seek, and damn them to poverty, physical pain, and soul-crushing fear you condemn, tie them to guilt, shame, and undying sadness. All for your own amusement, all left for your own momentary satisfaction." Tom's emotional torture became amplified. "Look at you. Why you took a happy, a fulfilling Christmas from almost 200 people, so you could satisfy your own desires." Tom could only stare in horror at the figure looming above him. He could not speak. He could not voluntarily move, only react to the incoming torrents of emotion. But this time, you see, crossed the line. You didn't only take gifts from your workers. You took something much more important. You took that old janitor's life. Tom suddenly felt physical pain, hunger, piercing cold, the pains of thirst. Even if why you didn't notice the obituary, I did. It was for him. They found him on the S Street, dead of hypothermia. Why you have gone too far. You must pay. You must feel his pain, and you must give your life as he lost his. Rest in peace." The figure opened its mouth grotesquely wide and began to shriek. The pain of death was upon Tom. He felt the cold, the fear of the man, his anger towards Tom for doing this to him. He felt every emotion, every physical stimuli. He cried. The total pain of dying concentrated into the space of a few seconds. The cold reached a peak. The hunger began to eat him from the inside. The thirst had consumed every drop of water in his body. The figure engulfed him, and with a final peak of emotion, everything was silent. He was gone. She was gone. Tom's wife, now widowed, sat crying in the living room. Her husband lay there, Frozen in place by rigor mortis, the police were all about the house. The coroner and head detective next to Tom's body. So, Mr. Coroner, a heart attack, you say? Undeniably. Must have come on quite quickly. At least it was nearly painless. Poor guy. On Christmas too, said the detective. Not a very good present. The human brain can be a funny thing. However, if you provoke a mechanism to harshly, it will react harshly, especially your conscience if you suppress it for years, while at the same time committing acts that would normally get a reaction from it. You only build up pressure, even if you don't notice it building. You can't keep that pressure bottled up forever because, if you do well, it just might kill you. The second story, diffused blood. We tried giving is every liquid we could find. Water, beer, soda, anything Jim and I could find in the house. The thing pulsated and rippled, like a mound of flesh in our living room. It looked like a baby blob of sorts. Jim came in and started spraying it with bleach, but it didn't seem to care about it. It just mixed and muddled like with everything else we tried to clean it with. I sat on the couch and stared at it for a while. That was smaller an hour ago. I swear we're just spreading it about. I think we need to call someone about this. Jim. Shut up, Adam. You don't know what it is. It could be dangerous for others. Maybe if they come into air contact, they will die or something. It's best we keep it here with just us. Really? Are you listening to yourself? Think about what the fuck you just said. Maybe it's already gotten into you. Fuck you. I never touched it. Where's the fucking dog? He turned away and headed for the patio door. That annoying yapping thing was gone. I hated that dog ever since Jim saved it from the shelter. It was always barking and pissing on my carpet. If it ran away, good riddance. Maybe it ate it. He came back in the room with rubber gloves and a bucket. Yeah. Well, maybe fuck you, Adam. Wow, he's pissed at something, I thought, but then, the moment he touched it, I blinked and he was gone. You poof. Just vanished, but the thing got bigger. Jim, what the fuck? I got up higher on the couch. I wasn't going anywhere near the thing, but now it was blocking the doorway. There was a window behind me, but I'm on the 13th floor, yeah, funny ain't it? I figured that if I could get to the bedroom I could go around to the kitchen, but the moment I touched the floor I fell on my face. Oh, fuck you to Grovey. But then I noticed how I fell. The couch was gone, and now the thing stood about 3 feet high and was 6 feet of goopy flesh in all directions. I watched it for a second, until I realized it's moving. I ran as fast as I could fuck the kitchen and calling from there. I ran from my room. The fire escape was just outside my door. I slammed the door shut hoping that someone heard it, and came to check and saw this thing. That was about 3 days ago. CEDA said they had no idea what it was, but it killed 3 people trying to capture. So they just burnt my apartment to a crisp. The press called it a freak electrical problem. They said that's why Jim died. So if you heard about an apartment fire recently in New York, you know what the real reason was. I just hope to God I never see that thing again. The third story, Playing God. Hey guys, thought you might like to know about this game I recently downloaded. I found this on an old website for games that kind of flunked at release. It contained everything from late 90s, SFPS, games anywhere up to 2007. I was browsing through when I saw a section listed as RPGs IMULATION. I'm kind of a sucker for this kind of game, so I had a look around. The games were listed in columns, big blocks of text that made my eyes blur when I attempted to look through them. There was one game, however, that was not in a column. It was standing solitary at the top of the page, overshadowed by ads. The game was called Simulation Star Sign. When I clicked on it, there were quite a lot of comments in the discussion page. Most people were just talking about how to install and download. A few, however, mentioned how bad the ending was. Not really bothered about spoilers, I searched for the ending on Google. It took me through about 3 to 4 pages before I found something worth reading. It was a review website for Ender Apria State games. I skipped most of the info, but one thing caught my eye. It said, "Don't get too familiar with your characters. They don't last long." This was hidden under a spoiler banner, so I found the page I was on before and downloaded it. It started up fine, which I really wasn't expecting from such an old site. The game had a README file with some basic info about the developer and estimated sales. The graphics were pretty decent for 2000 for at least. That's when the copyright was taken out. It looked a little like The Sims, but it was a centered third-person camera rather than a bird's eye view. The first thing I saw was a long bar with green filling at the bottom of the screen. There was no character creation or any choosing of stats or traits. I was simply spawned into this park near a busy road. It took me a while to get going, but I eventually figured out the basic controls and had got a good setup in a small apartment on the east side of the map. A small icon popped up above my characters, and showing a picture of a knife and fork. I assumed it was a sign that I had to eat, so I went over to the oven and began cooking a dish. It didn't say what. All that was shown was the icon "Make Dinner." This was not simply a case of my character putting some dish into the oven. However, he began cluttering through drawers and cupboards to find all the equipment he needed. This was when things got a little odd. It appeared as though my character couldn't find something. He began rummaging through the drawers, getting more and more frustrated. This carried on to a terrifying extent. He began pulling out drawers from the units and chucking them across the room, sending things flying across the floor. This was when the little green bar at the bottom of the screen started to do something. A small part of it began to scratch away like a scratch card lottery ticket. It revealed the letters "Aka." That's all that could be seen. My character looked up quickly and smacked his head on an overhead cupboard, shouting out loud profanities in this sim-like language. More of the bar began to scratch away. It now read, "I can't D." The screen then faded to black when it faded back, and again my character was lying on the floor, eyeing up a kitchen knife on the floor. I now knew why the game was banned, but it was interesting, so I think I'll continue now. I've currently got it windowed as I write this. Okay, so a couple of hours have passed and this is just getting creepy. My character is just continuing to fail at day-to-day tasks, and is getting more and more frustrated as he does so. The bar has now revealed the words, "I can't deal with this." There is hardly any of the green bar left. But my character seems to be calming down now. Another bubble has just popped up above him. This looks like an animation. It looks like he's falling through the air. He just passed from trees to tree trunks, and before the ground became visible, the bubble disappeared. The kitchen is still a mess. Apart from the knife, he picked that up and put it back in a safe place. It has a gleaming light surrounding it. Not sure what it means. I have to say, I'm a little shocked by the game. But the world is getting more and more detailed. This guy is looking at his computer right now. His face keeps changing. He keeps switching hair color, race, gender. I guess it must be a bug. Everything is so detailed right now. I'm beginning to see what it says on the screen, but it's still a bit of an orange-colored blur. I can see it now. What hesh? My character is reading, "Go now, somewhere safe. Lock yourself in if you can." A timer has appeared. It's counting down, and the knife logo has appeared again. I'm sorry.